Next on Worcester News Tonight, Worcester is home to the first ever perfect game in professional baseball. The Bravehearts pay tribute tonight. Plus, could an infestation of gypsy moths be on the decline? The state says they're noticing a decrease of defoliation from the insects. Good evening and thank you for joining us. I'm Anna Botari. We begin tonight in Worcester, where a young woman is recovering after Worcester police say she was hit by a car while in a crosswalk. According to police, the 16-year-old was crossing Burncoat Street at the intersection of Burncoat and Melrose at 6:45 a.m. when they say she was struck by a black sedan who then took off. The victim suffered serious injuries, including broken bones, but is expected to survive. If you have any information about the suspect vehicle, you're asked to contact Worcester Police. Well, Wednesday is an unofficial holiday in the city of Worcester. 130 years ago, the first ever perfect game in the history of professional baseball was pitched right here in the city. Tonight, Worcester's current baseball team celebrated the occasion in a unique way. Our Cam Jandro is live in Worcester tonight with those details. Cam?
Anna, the perfect game is one of the most exciting and difficult accomplishments in all of sports. There have only been 23 in Major League history. Now, rewind the clock 130 years. Becker College wasn't even here yet. It was the Worcester Agricultural Fairgrounds, and that's where, for the very first time, it was 27 up, 27 down.
Perfect game, Worcester's jersey.
The Worcester Bravehearts took the field Wednesday, but under a different name.
We're wearing replica uniforms of the old Worcesters of 1880.
The first ever perfect game in the history of professional baseball was thrown on June 12, 1880. A monument honoring the historic game sits in the middle of Becker College's Worcester campus, formerly the Worcester Agricultural Fairgrounds, where the game was played 139 years ago.
And baseball is such an important part of our national history that to have this piece here on campus it's nice to be a steward of history.
To commemorate the occasion, the Worcester Historical Museum set up a booth at Hanover Insurance Park with pictures of the Worcesters.
Here's a copy of one page of the application for the National League in 1879.
They even had a life-size cutout of the man who threw his now famous perfect game against the Cleveland Blues.
And our friend J. Lee Richmond was the pitcher. He was a contract pitcher from the Browns, from Brown University. He came to town, and a few hours later, it was baseball history.
For the Bravehearts, it's special to be in a city with such a rich baseball history.
There's a lot of cities across America that don't have that rich baseball history like Worcester does, and that's why the Bravehearts want to celebrate all the good baseball that has been in this city for over 100 years and that is continuing to come here.
Now, if you're interested in one of those jerseys, the Bravehearts are actually auctioning them off. You have until Friday to put your name in the ring. And speaking of perfect games, throwing out the first pitch tonight was 12-year-old Little Leaguer Brady Fenner, who threw a perfect game a few weeks ago and struck out every single batter he faced. We're live in Worcester tonight. I'm Cam Jandro, Worcester News Tonight.
A renovation project at the Worcester Public Library is one step closer as they break ground Wednesday. The project is expected to cost $12.7 million. It'll create a new front door on Franklin Street. The renovation will add 8,000 square feet to create more public space and a new children's room on the third floor. Architects working on the project say enlarging the windows at the new entrance will open the library up to the Worcester Common.
It has had an entrance that's been off the backside for a long time, or what's considered now more like the backside. And this is more pedestrian friendly, and it's really wonderful in the development for a cityscape.
Is going to really help with the sort of the redevelopment of Worcester and continue the building, the momentum for what's happening here in Worcester.
The architects say they expect construction to take about a year. The main library was last renovated in 2001. Georgia's Coney Island is being recognized as the best restaurant in Worcester. Our partners at NBC 10 Boston created a bracket including 16 popular Worcester restaurants and asked people to vote for their favorite. The votes are in and Georgia's Coney Island came out on top. They're best known for their hot dogs. Co-owner Catherine Sendikos says they are honored to receive the recognition and have decided to give back and donate money to the Friendly House.
We just think it's important because if the community voted Coney Island as best restaurant, we need to give back to the community. And that's really what I think this whole thing is all about. And I think that's what all of Worcester restaurants are really all about, actually.
Sandiko says they're currently thinking up other ways to celebrate the title as well. She says one idea is to open on their off day, Tuesday, but says to stay tuned. It's a busy time of year for a local tree company. They say several customers are calling in about gypsy moth caterpillars, but the state says the population of the insect could be on the decline. Our Brittany Schaefer has the story.
I'm looking for browsing on the leaves, and so there's a little bit of browsing, a little bit of chewing.
Gypsy moth caterpillar infestations are keeping Julian Reese busy. The Bartlett tree expert manager says they're receiving 20 calls a day about the pest.
We've gotten to the point where we've had to turn away a lot of calls because it has been a really busy spring.
But despite a busy removal season, the number of caterpillars is down this year. The state's Department of Conservation and Recreation says they previously expected 2019 to be a devastating season.
We don't like to be wrong, but this is good to be wrong. We predicted this year was going to be extremely bad. We're actually not seeing that. Multiple factors. One is the weather. The weather has played a big part of that because it was a cool, wet spring. So the gypsy moth hatched out late.
Gypsy moth caterpillars most often feed on oak tree leaves. Forest Health Program Director Ken Gooch says multiple years of gypsy moth defoliation can kill trees.
The big problem is if you can go through 1 year of defoliation, maybe 2 years of defoliation, but if you start getting into a third year of defoliation in a row, it puts a lot of stress on the trees, a lot of harm to them. And you can get tree mortality, which is in some areas we are seeing quite a bit of tree mortality.
Reese treated these trees in Shrewsbury. He says residents have limited time left to protect their trees.
One of the greatest challenges is calling too late and the panic that causes.
Now this gypsy moth caterpillar is eating a good amount of this oak tree leaf here. Ken Gooch says the caterpillars will turn into moths in early July. In Auburn, Brittany Schaefer, Worcester News Tonight.
A safe place for survivors. Janas House in Worcester aims to help women who have been sexually exploited. The residential center is under construction, but the program's chief operating officer says once it's complete, it will offer special care. Our Rosalind Flaherty has the details.
Inside these walls is where women with a history of commercial sexual exploitation will get the help they need.
There are programs in the city for women, but not specifically for women that have been involved in prostitution. So there's a lot of shame and stigma.
The organization Living in Freedom Together created Janas Place. It will be a 15-bed residential treatment program in Worcester. Chief Operating Officer Nikki Bell says the home is the first of its kind in the country. She says women will get trauma-informed care, including recovery resources and employment opportunities, to provide long-term options for survivors.
We'll have 2 clinical staff on site. We have a medical director, so we'll provide as much as we can within the home so that they don't have barriers to accessing care.
The home is named after a local woman who died shortly after being released from prison. Bell says over the last 3 years, more than 20 women the organization has worked with died while being involved in prostitution. She herself is a survivor.
People are dying, right? And we don't have adequate treatment for people with substance use disorder. But to me personally, a lot of these women are my friends.
The organization says through state funding and donations, the program will run for the next 9 years. While they still have a lot of construction work to do, they hope the home will shine a new light on the issue.
The house is life or death, quite frankly, so it's critical, and that's not an exaggeration.
Rosalind Flaherty, Worcester News Tonight.